Well, welcome to the Road Safety Audit training course. And as you can see on the screen there, applicable for Victoria, South Australia, Northern Territory, Tasmania, Queensland, and New Zealand. Not Western Australia, though. So if you're logging in from Western Australia, hoping to have the audit course, you've probably come to the wrong spot, but we would have told you that very early in the registration process. My name's Ken Beer. For those I don't know, I'll introduce myself in a second. And we've got Marissa here from Safe System Solutions, and we'll introduce her shortly. As mentioned, we are recording the session. Why do we record it, Marissa?
We are recording. We're going to record all of our sessions. Look, just in the case you do miss a session, or if you would like to simply catch up on some of the content that has been delivered, we will record all of our sessions and we will upload them onto our learning management system, which hopefully you have all received your login details for. So at any time, if you do need to catch up or rewatch something, they will be available for you to watch.
Great.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. You'll see there a content warning on the screen. We do show some road crash scenes, nothing graphic, but we're just trying to understand what went wrong and what caused severity of injury and the like, and try to stop those happening in the future. But if that's something that could disturb you, we flag that at this very early stage. And
that's me.
That is you and your contact details there. So over to you to explain what people can do in terms of contacting you, but also interacting in these sessions.
Yes. My name is Marissa. It's nice to meet you all virtually. I'm the training coordinator here at Safe System Solutions. So if some of you or most of you would have received a bunch of emails from me already, if at any time you can't make the session or you're having any kind of technical issues or you have any other administrative questions at all, please contact me, shoot me an email at training@safesystemsolutions.com.au, and I will do my best to help you with any issues you might have. During our sessions, we very much would love for you to interact with us as much as you can, chat to ask us as many questions as you would like. To do that, this is a webinar version of Zoom, so we cannot see or hear you. However, we do have the chat function as highlighted there on the screen. Please, you're most welcome to chat. Type your questions in there and your comments or questions, and if you can select that it's to everyone, that will enable everybody to see your questions, or you can simply write to hosts and panelists, which will just come to Ken and myself. If you have any issues with the chat function, there's also a Q&A function which you can submit your questions also. You can post anonymously there, or you can, we can see who you are there also. So that's just another way for you to communicate with us. If you do have anything if you would like to chat to us, you can raise your hand with the raise hand function, and we can take you off mute if you would like to chat to us or make comment about anything at all. So that function is welcomed. Also, if you do have any tech problems today, one of the best ways to usually fix that one up is just to close Zoom, log out, and then get back in and join the webinar again. Usually we find that fixes all problems, or else you can, the old reboot usually works wonders, rebooting of your PC, or you can dial in. We would have sent you a document on how to dial in, which you would have received on one of my last emails to you. I think that covers most of that one, Ken.
Thanks, Marissa. And so we really do encourage the use of the chat function. I want you asking questions and answering my questions. Don't wait until we sort of ask you, are there any questions? Because you'll start typing and then I'll have moved on. And so just type them in as you go. And we don't have the sort of networking that you get at lunches or breaks in a live together session. So the use of the everybody in the chat also helps a little bit there. Thank you. And the learning management system, Marissa mentioned you have received an email that should have come from Safe System Solutions. Check your junk folder. You cannot pass this course unless you have access to the learning management system. So if you don't have access to the learning management system, you better get in contact with Marissa and get access.
Yes.
And Marissa will show you live later on how to go through that. So as mentioned, my name's Ken Beer. I'm the principal engineer at Safe System Solutions. My contact details are there. So any content related questions, shoot them through to me. You can shoot them through to Marissa, the training email, and they'll get to me. I've also got my colleague, Jamie Robinson, who some of you might know. He's technical lead at Safe System Solutions. He'll do a presentation, but also Max McCardle, for some of you might know, he will be doing some of the content as well. So there's got a bit of a mix there. There's a link to or a QR code to my LinkedIn there. Feel free to connect with me. I do try to post road safety content on there, road safety engineering content and auditing content. Good way to try to keep up to speed with what's going on. Now, who's this, Marissa?
Wally, that is our very good friend Wally the Wombat. You will see our good friend Wally appear in a number of the slides that will be presented to you today and over the next 5 modules. Count them, count Wally, because we want to keep your interactions. So we want you to keep track of how many Wallies you find over the session. So there will be a question in one of the quizzes that you will need to complete. So please keep count, just scribble it down or something, and keep count of the Wallies. And the one on your screen right now does not count. So we're still at 0.
Wally counts 0 at the moment, but yeah, so you have quizzes at the end of each session, and one of the quiz questions is how many times did that symbol appear in the slides? One way to try to keep you engaged. I know it's tempting to do your emails or design that roundabout on the side while the training's happening, but you'll have to keep somewhat alert. And there's also some competency requirements and assessment tasks within this course. So you need to attend 4 out of the 5 live webinars. So we understand life may create, so you just can't get to one of them. You will need to watch that one, the recording of it. You'll need to do that to find out how many Wallies there are, but also to complete the quiz. And if for some reason you can't make more than one, just contact Marissa and work out a resolution there. We need you to complete the tasks required, and there is a competency benchmark of 80%. So we mark a number of the assignments and quizzes, and you've got to receive 80% or greater on all of them. Now, don't get too stressed out on that for 2 reasons. One is everything that we're asking is covered in the content of the course. So as long as you're paying attention and asking questions if you need clarification, you should be fine there. The second one is that you've got 3 attempts, and you have the option to reach out for one-on-one coaching if you are really struggling, and talk to Marissa, who will organise a time with a senior road safety auditor who will have a Zoom call with you or a phone call or Teams or whatever, and really continue to help you really get to that benchmark level of competency. I always say that if I can't bring everybody up to that level of competency, I've failed as well. So I don't want to fail. So reach out for that help if you're struggling at all. But as I say, nothing overly complex here, and it's all covered in the course content. Anything we've missed? I know there's one thing we've missed. What are you sitting there in, Marissa? What's behind you?
No, it's my amazing prize pit. Yes, all the amazing prizes behind me. As Ken mentioned, we do encourage your interaction. And our wonderful Ken loves to give out prizes. We often run out of prizes. He gives out that many. So yes, please, Ken loves to award the best questions almost, or anything that makes him laugh. So we encourage your interaction, lots of questions, lots of comments, and pick any one of the prizes behind me and we'll shoot it over your way. No, we're not going to give you a Superman, but we do have a lovely pool of prizes that we send out to our participants. So that's why I'm in this prize pit.
That's right. So at the end of the course, when you successfully finish it, you'll get an electronic copy of your certificate. You also get a hard copy sent to you in the mail with any prizes you won along the way. So I will ask you questions, expect you to ask questions via the chat, which Marissa will feed to me. We also have a little incentive for people to log in a couple of minutes early to sessions where we just do some general trivia questions and answers, give out some prizes before the session even. So get involved. You can win some prizes. It's always a bit of fun. Okay, I think that's pretty good, but pop your questions about the logistics management running of the course into the chat as we go at any point. Marissa will cover those off behind the scenes. But I'm going to get stuck into a bit of the content. We do have a short stretch break in the middle of the session. It will be short for this one because I've got 7 hours of content to try to pack into now, an hour and 50 minutes or so. But yeah, we will still have that little stretch break for you. So what we're going to talk about here is road safety audits. Road safety audits. Now, it's a term that you have probably heard. You've probably had different involvements in road safety audits, either procuring road safety audits or instructing people to go out and do one or including as part of their project. But we are going to start at the very basics of understanding what a road safety audit is. Then we'll get into a bit of how they're done and the process behind road safety auditing. But the end of this module, so module 1 here, we want to define a road safety audit, understand road safety audits within a project's life cycle. We're going to talk about the difference between road safety audits and black spot investigations, which is another term many of you might have heard of. We're going to have a good chat about risk assessment methodologies. We're going to talk about the safe system, kinetic energy, and categorization of findings. So pop that up at the start. I don't like having that many words on a slide, but nonetheless, it's there to just sort of put ourselves in perspective of what we're covering today. But really all the content for this course overall sits in the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is Road Safety Audit. Now, I was technical advisor to Austroads on the most recent update to this, which is the 2022 version of it that you can see on screen. There's older versions you can see there, but this course follows that Austroads syllabus for road safety audit course and is accepted by quite a number of the jurisdictions. As I say, not Western Australia. They do things very differently over there. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about that in later sessions about some of their differences. But overall for this course, so before I showed you what we're doing in module 1, but I just wanted to contextualize this in the whole course. We're going to talk about the process of road safety auditing. I can't stress that word process enough. There is no possible way in these 5 modules that we've got together that we can get across all the sort of technical knowledge associated with the findings of road safety audits and the like. We will talk generally about the process, and that's our key competency assurance mechanism, is to make sure you understand the process of a road safety audit, how it should be done, where you can get value out of it, what are some of the key operating processes around road safety audit. What we do want to do is, instill a few basic skills in road safety auditing. But as I say, there's so much in it. And it's a lifelong continual learning as you go, picking up new things about road safety engineering, road safety design, and the like that you're factoring into your road safety audits. We're going to ensure that you undertake your road safety audits through a safe system lens. And I'll explain what that means shortly. What I've been auditing for 20 years or so, and things come up over and over again. And we try to get those rectified in practice, in standards, in guidelines, in these sort of things. But nonetheless, I'll use some of those just as examples. So you see common sort of road safety audit findings. We want to ensure you think about all road users. Okay, cyclists, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles, pedestrians, cars, e-scooters, everybody out there, because a road safety audit is about all road users and improving safety for all road users. road safety audit's a good tool, and we want to encourage its use. And any questions you've got about road safety audits? There's a Wally. Wally counts 1, according to me. Hope that's as much help as you're going to get with Wally's for this course. Okay, this slide is directly out of the Australia's Guide to Road Safety Part 6, Road Safety Audit, and I'm not going to spend long on it, but what it's trying to do is contextualize road safety audit within the life cycle of a project or infrastructure. So what we see there is, sorry, I flicked back to the other slide. That's not another Wally. That was the same Wally. You're on 1 still. General life cycle of infrastructure, you've got sort of corridor planning, development of projects to improve your network. You've got sort of scoping works, countermeasure development. Then you get into designing once you've chosen. Then you build it. And then you after the project's been built, there's some stuff to do. And then you operate and maintain whatever it is. And then sort of, cycles back. On it. So there's lots of ways to inject safety into that, road safety into that. And some of them are just very integrated in the processes, and some of them are more overt, specific road safety lenses on things. So road safety audit sits there as what we would refer to as a proactive technique in road safety investigation. You can see there it's really associated with the development of concepts and then the detailed design of a project and going out and building it. It's not a great tool at all if you're thinking about network corridor planning or even general programs, and it starts to get good from about stage 3 on. Lots of other techniques out there. This is not the course to go through those, but I'm happy offline to answer questions if anybody has about any of these other techniques you're seeing in there. I just finished running not too long ago a course with the ACT government on all of the different road safety techniques out there and which is the most appropriate to use in which circumstances. And it's getting, it's getting very confusing for people because there's more and more techniques appearing and understanding that. But today and this course, we're focusing on that road safety audit technique. So one of the first things, and I put it right up front here, is that people often hear that term audit and they conjure up a financial audit or something like that, where some scary person comes in and checks conformance with the documented standards or codes or the like. Now, that is not what a road safety audit is. And the reason for that is that standards do not necessarily equal safety. Okay, they're a good starting point, and safety has been thought into a lot of the standards and guidelines that we have for the infrastructure on our roads and streets. However, there are many, many circumstances where meeting standards and meeting guideline requirements and jurisdictional requirements doesn't guarantee us a safe outcome. And that can be for a number of reasons. Firstly, we know in some standards and guidelines there is death and serious injury embedded in it, accepted in it, trading off for other reasons. Okay, we try to challenge that a lot, but sometimes it's there. So that's one. The second one is that a combination of standards together may present a scenario that's unsafe. So isolated, the standard might have a good high level of safety, but when you combine it with another standard, they together cause an unsafe environment. Or thirdly, it could be that the standard has never been applied in this context. So we're taking something and contextually it's different to the origins of the development of that standard or guideline. And so then we need to think about what are the safety impacts of that. So our role as road safety auditors is not to go through and tick, yes, they have met the standards of that jurisdiction or the like. It's for us to have a genuine look at, will this project or this area cause death or serious injury to our community in the future? And what can we do to lessen that risk? And it does not matter if it meets standards or not. And I've done many audits of my time where I've said with my audit team, we believe this is a safety issue and we know it meets Austroad's requirements, but it's still a safety issue. And likewise, we've looked at things and said, well, that's not to standard, but it's not a safety issue. So that's not for us to report because we don't believe it's going to kill or seriously injure our community. In fact, sometimes it makes things a lot safer not to follow the standards, and that's what they've done. So immediate common misunderstanding. Number one is people thinking that it is a standards review, and it is not. Right. Marissa, this is the longest I've ever gone without giving out a prize, so I better do that. Anybody know what road that is? That's a bit of favoritism to one state because you're a better chance of getting that. First one to type that into the chat. If you know what road that is, you can have a prize. And if you've come to our road safety barrier design course, you'll probably seen this one. We're getting some close calls there from people. There we go. Mark's on it. It's Eastlink, and Don was close. Don was closely followed behind them. So I'm going to let you work that out. It's definitely one for Mark. First prize winner, and then I'll let you decide on the other. So it is Eastlink, and it was not that long after Eastlink opened that we saw a heavy vehicle leave their lane, breach the barrier system, collide with the gantry there, and tragically the driver was killed. And the question I suppose I ask you is, that road safety barrier there, it's a wire rope safety barrier system. Now actually, I'll give it another prize for this. If it was a test level 4 barrier system, test level 4, what weight of vehicle was it tested to contain? So it was a crash test done, in a lab with that setup, or in a crash test environment. What weight of vehicle was it tested for? Now, this isn't. I should say nothing in the course itself contributes to any marks in the course. It's only after the course you're quizzed. So feel free to just guess when I ask questions like this. So Stuart's got it, nailed it. 10 ton, well done. 2.2 would be a test level 3. So Shane's onto that as well. Now, some of you might be saying to yourself, oh, God, I don't know that. Maybe I can't be a road safety auditor. No, don't stress. I've asked a very technical, specific question. You road safety audit in teams. You're not expected to have this sort of knowledge at your fingertips as a road safety auditor. I chucked it out there, though, because there are technical elements that you will, as a team, want to uncover, and you might ask for expert advice. But the principle here is that barrier, even if it was a test level 4, which I actually think it was a test level 3, which based on what I saw from some of the crash reporting, which is a 2.2 ton. But even if it was test level 4, it's a 10-ton truck that it was expected to contain. It was never expected to contain a vehicle of that size that has breached it. But it met every standard that was there. It was a tested barrier, an approved barrier system. Foundations were good. The offset from hazard was correct for the deflection space. Everything was right. Tick, 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 met all the standards. But one of the members of our community has died at this location. So meeting standards there doesn't guarantee safety, does it? The second thing on this is I actually think we've been lucky that only one person was killed. I mean, the potential for the gantry to have come across the road is certainly there, and that would have undoubtedly resulted in more death or serious injury. So that's the vehicle that is the test level 4 test vehicle in a test environment. These are just simply there as examples of meeting standards, not necessarily guaranteeing safety. Let's do another one. let's have a look here at another Victorian example. So let's have a look. Now, some of you will know this one, Chandler Highway Bridge. We've got the Amcor paper mill site down here, which is being developed into a massive, massive subdivision and apartments and high-rise apartments and shopping center and all sorts of stuff. And so they're building a new intersection here. You've got Heidelberg Road intersection existing up here. So let's dive in on that a little bit more. What you see is the planned new intersection here. And we've got a vehicle where that red square is, and it's traveling along at maybe 65 kilometers an hour. It's a 60 zone, so maybe they're going a little fast. But they are wanting to go straight ahead, and they go straight, straight, straight. Oh my God, I'm in a right turn lane. This is what we refer to as a trap lane. Now, this is a common road safety audit finding, which is where a change is happening on the road network that creates a trap lane. Now, trap lanes are not against standards. They're discouraged in guidelines. Talk about trying to avoid trap lanes, but you can't actually say that this does not meet standards or guidelines. What we know, though, with a trap lane is that you will get rear end crashes and you'll get sideswipe crashes in the lead up to the point of trap. And most of those are relatively low severity because rear end crashes and sideswipes are generally can happen at higher speeds without highly debilitating serious injuries and the like. However, we do see some serious injuries, and we also see some pretty bad things associated with motorcyclists, for example, in the area as people try to get out of this trap lane and make bad calls. So here's another example of where something they've done it. They can argue it meets standards, but our role as road safety auditors is to come in and alert people to this and risk rate it and help try to provide some recommendations to lessen this risk or to remove it. Now, this one, it's not like the designer of this would not know that they've designed a trap lane, okay? Occasionally you do see that they don't sort of contextualize that happened. I'm pretty certain this designer knows that they've created a trap lane. Okay, why have they done that? Well, they've done it just because they physically can't fit this within the environment that they've got, the road reserve. It's all very tight, and they're trying to accommodate these two lanes, and it's all very hard to do. Designing and building major infrastructure is extremely hard and complex. You're dealing with cost issues, community expectations, requirements from different authorities, your services, environmental regulations, cultural heritage, right? There's all sorts of constraints, and safety is in there as one of their factors. What we have as road safety auditors is to a degree the luxury that our thing is to only look at safety. You can be sympathetic to their challenges around all those other things, but just because they don't have enough land, we still report it. Okay, it's not a safe environment because they can't do anything about it. We still report it in our audit report as this is an issue, and then it's over to them to try to work out what they can do about this. Yes, we might give them a few ideas how to lessen this risk, which may involve removing the trap lane, but they may not be able to do that for one reason or another. So we as auditors are there to be the lens of safety and report everything we believe is unsafe with a new project like this, or if it's an existing road with what's currently there. I think a prize should be given to whoever named it a trap lane. I just think that is great naming. It's exactly what it is. You've probably been in them before and you're like, oh, what? This lane's turning and I'm trapped. Another example there. Right. Time for you to do a bit of analysis of a crash. Now, that is road safety auditing is not about analyzing crashes and trying to work out what happened. Road safety audits are that proactive. I mentioned that a few slides back. We're the proactive. So we're actually trying to do things without detailed investigation of crash history or crashes. We're trying to imagine crashes that could happen. But to do the training here, to get your mind thinking about contribution of road environment to crashes, I will show you some crashes and I'll ask you how the road environment contributed to the chance of the crash or the severity of the outcome of the crash. So I'm going to show you a bit of dash cam footage here, which has a crash in it. And what I want you to be doing is thinking about what characteristics of the road environment in general, the infrastructure and the layout and everything like that, contributed to this crash happening. So look at the infrastructure and then I want you, as you think of them, to type them into the chat. I will pause for questions in a little bit, but I'm just going to play this now a couple of times. I'll play it a few times for you so you'll be able to see. We're looking at the back dash cam and then we move to the front dash cam shortly. Okay, so I'm seeing some comments start to come in. I'm going to play the whole thing again just to for others to have a think about the road environment and what's contributing from the infrastructure and the layout and the like, what might be contributing to this crash happening. Okay. So a couple of really interesting points have been put in there. And I'll admit, like, it's always very hard to do this from just a video, a dash cam. Actually, one of the reasons why we always go to a site as a road safety audit, because seeing the general context, how it all flows, being able to look at it from different angles and everything like that. But nonetheless, you've put in some wonderful things here, and thank you. This interaction is excellent. This is a good group. I'm liking this already. There's a couple of things that really stood out to me. There's a number of people talking sort of about the speed that the vehicle is approaching. And first of all, I'm glad that nobody's like honed in on driver behavior, just as I'm saying that one pops up. I'm glad nobody's honed in on driver behavior because that's not our particular concern as road safety auditors. Drivers will behave like drivers behave, and it's very varied, and there's all sorts of things that go on out there. And, you know, you might say, oh, it's that white ute driver and they're doing something. Well, there's always another white ute driver. And yes, there's lots of areas of road safety working on trying to address that those risks and lessen those sorts of things. But I think that there's road environment characteristics here contributing to the chance this crash happens. And I think some of you have popped in some really good ones. People talked about sort of the width of this intersection and the width of the lanes that are there that create the ability for sort of high speed and maybe not delineating exactly where this intersection is. And a lot of people talking about the sight line impediments from the vegetation in the middle here, which is an interesting point as well. And so thank you for that. Some people talking about the signage and is there enough warning sign? Are signs blocking each other? Are they too small? These are all interesting points to bring up. But one in there from Chris that is a really important one in my mind as a fundamental way that road safety auditors should be thinking. Chris says light poles influence expectancy of motorists, visually carries the road forward through the intersection. Now, I'll give a prize definitely there to Chris for that. The term we would use for a see-through effect like there sort of is here, it's a bit hard to see out from the dash cam, but is this overarching term we call visual deceit. If the road deceives a driver or rider or walker for that matter, in what their requirements are, we call it visual deceit. And a run of power poles, a run of lights, or a run of trees that continues through an intersection where a driver has a requirement to yield, to give way, or to stop, there is a big subconscious influence that road continues on unabated, and we see a lot of overshoot crashes in these circumstances. So we categorize crashes at intersection into two categories. There's overshoot crashes, where the driver is unaware of their obligation to stop and give way, or doesn't recognize that early enough, or there is restart crashes. And restart crashes is where the driver is fully aware that they have to stop or give way at this location and makes a bad judgment call. So sight distance impediments are about restart crashes. So even if, like I say restart, it sounds like they've stopped and that's sometimes the case. They stopped and for one reason or another, they make that move out when they shouldn't. But it's also a restart crash if they're approaching the intersection and they can't see, they don't immediately come to a stop. It's a restart crash because they're aware of what their requirements are. But the overshoot crashes, which, this one has some potential to be considered an overshoot crash, is that a driver, and we're talking about, would be 1 in a million, 1 in 500,000 that comes in here. Maybe they're very tired, maybe they've had a beer or two, or maybe, one reason or another, they don't recognize their requirement to give way until too late. And the presence of these runs of trees and power poles and things like that just give that visual tunnel effect, and then we call it visual deceit. So I think that's a potential factor, and it's one of those ones that is going to be heavily influential on overshoot crashes at these sorts of locations. The signs, line marking, sight distance, everything like that, they're important things that we will think about as a road safety auditor. But I want to state clearly that the general geometry of the road environment is so influential on the chances of crashes, and it sort of trumps most abilities to sign it and line it differently. We see this similar with traffic signals where a red light's there and the road continues straight through. It's all the same, and we just know that people run the red light. And again, it's that geometry of a straight continuation. An interesting point that came in also in the chat there was around somebody questioning: is it a roundabout? Is it what is it? And if we're slightly confused by that or questioning that, for sure some of the drivers will as well. Again, you'd want to be there on site and have a look at it and make those judgment calls. But certainly confusion of intersection form is an interesting one. There's really good ways to lessen this risk. And I'll talk to you about all of these ways to lessen the risk. But one in terms of confusion of intersection form and control at these sorts of ones is if you have an advanced warning sign, is one thing. But if you actually have an advanced directional sign, so the green sign, and that directional sign had a T on it like that, now that's a very good clue to a driver that road ain't continuing. Now, anyway, I won't go into that in detail, but I'm not dismissing the other things that have been put in there associated with signs, signs blocking each other, was there enough advanced warning and these sorts of things. Those are all very good things for road safety auditors to look at. I want to, just in the interest of time, move on to have a look at now the crash is happening. And what's influencing the severity of the outcome of the crash? Because us as road safety auditors, well, we're looking at the likelihood of the crash, what's meaning this crash could happen. But we're also looking at the severity of the outcome when these crashes do happen. Now, remember, we're analyzing an actual crash here. In a road safety audit, you've got to imagine all this happening before it ever happens. The severity of the outcome of the crash in this location and in this incident. I did note a couple of people already put a few things in there about this light pole, which we will talk about shortly. But Andrew's put an interesting comment here about angle of collision, and that's some really good safe system thinking there from Andrew. So prize-worthy comment there. We think about, yes, how severe is it when two vehicles collide? And one of the influencing factors on that will be the angle that they collide at. So is it a right angle, or is it more a bouncing off angle like that? That one's going to be less severe than that. Okay, so the angle of crash is important. The speed of the vehicles is very, very important from a road safety perspective. When vehicles leave the road, what they hit is very important too. And this one's hit that that light pole, hasn't it? Okay. That light pole has then broken away. Now, what's that? Is that a faulty light pole? Is that has that not done its job and stopped the vehicle as it should? Does anybody know the term that we would use for this? Zishan, sorry. Hope I pronounced that correctly. It's frangible is the word, and somebody else probably said it further up the chat, but frangible is the word. And then I see somebody's already defined which type of frangibility or which type of frangible it is, which is slip-based. So prize there, I can't see that full name. So Marissa, I'm keeping you busy here. So slip-based is the type there. Bernard's also given us another type of frangible pole, impact absorbing. So there's a prize there as well. You run out of prizes yet, Marissa?
I'm running out of prizes slowly. Slow down.
Let me just finish this off, and then I'll see if you've got any questions that I've missed there, because I think there's been a few.
Will do. There were a few earlier on. I'll wait for your call.
Just give me a second here. What I want you to have a look at here is that distance, right? There, the pole's there, right? And that car then gets to out here, right? That distance, that is the distance that black vehicle has had, the one that struck the pole, to dissipate their energy over time. The dissipation of energy over time is a winner for lessening the severity of any injury to the occupants of vehicles. It's the equivalent of putting a big cushy piece of foam in front of a brick wall and running at that brick wall headfirst. It cushions you over time. and you slow down. Remove that, or in this case, make it a solid concrete pole that doesn't budge. Bang. All that energy instantly transferred to the occupant of the vehicle, and they then decelerate really quickly, and then all their organs get ripped out of the internals of their body and they're killed and seriously injured. Right? So if we can make things friendly, frangible, the severity is going to come down. The selection of a slip-based pole, a frangible pole at this location, I believe has prevented either a high-level serious injury or death to the occupant of that vehicle. And that's somebody's made that decision. It could have been the designer. It could have been a road safety auditor suggesting that. Okay. But the choice here to make that frangible has probably saved a life. Okay. So you can see here that as road safety auditors, we can contribute to lessening the death and serious injury on the road network if we lessen the chance that this crash happens, and we can do that through lessening the see-through effect, providing more warning, opening up sight lines, for example, line marking. And we can contribute to the reduction in death and serious injury by making it so when crashes happen, the outcomes aren't as bad. That people walk away. Yeah, sure, they've got to go to the panel beater, but they can walk away from this as that driver does. And later in that video, you would have seen they get out, they walk around. Incredible that they've crashed into a point source hazard at that speed and they're walking out of their car. If it was solid, they would not be able to do that. So we can contribute there to safety. I'm going to talk a little bit more about slip-based poles shortly after I get any info from Marissa.
Okay, let's just scroll up a little, just above the last activity. So there were a few questions. In there. Sorry, I've lost it. There's too many comments.
Okay. So there's one there from Mark, I can see. Would you ever recommend something that doesn't meet standards?
Okay. Yeah.
As in the current design meets standards, your recommendation doesn't, but it's safer. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. If you know that there's a safer way to do it that doesn't meet standards, not only would you do it, you're obligated to do it. That is our requirement as road safety auditors to do that if we believe we can get a safer outcome from the community, regardless of whether it meets standards or does not meet standards.
And the other one was, should we not consider the checking vehicle when designing barriers?
Okay, so that's an interesting comment. We do have a session specifically on more of that details around choice of design vehicle, checking vehicle. Then we get into other things like swept paths and the like in terms of these decision making. And what is our obligation as road safety auditors? What's the designer's obligation and the like? So I'll probably just hold that over. Essentially, you want to think about fit for purpose, but also safest outcomes. And there's a lot more to selecting a barrier system than simply going the highest test level you can go. But I was using that one more as an example of us meeting standards that doesn't necessarily guarantee safety. So good questions there, actually. 2 prizes, please, Marissa.
No worries.
I like the questions.
We just have a new comment. If that's the case, if we didn't follow the standard, would it bite us if something serious happens in the future? How could it be justified by not following the standard?
So Transport for New South Wales did an interesting study. They engaged one of those, super expensive legal firms to answer this question that we're asking here. What if they do something that does not meet the documented standards that they believe is safer, and could they get sued because of that? the law firm said not only that you are better off doing the thing that's non-standard if you believe it's safer. They said you will be held liable if you don't do something that you believe is safer, even though it doesn't meet standards. So hiding behind a documented standard is no, it's not going to protect you if there is something that's safer that could be done. Now, it sounds like I'm saying here that standards and guidelines are horribly unsafe and, you should never follow. No, there's a lot of standards and guidelines that are wonderful and provide very good safe outcomes, and they're the best that we can do. But you just need to be conscious that occasionally, and because of those circumstances, they're not, and we're obligated to put something forward. Now, it's just not wild things that you put forward, though. You've got to actually think those through, and there's you would justify that by pointing at what evidence you have around this thing that you're proposing.
And thanks, Ken. And we have, what if the safety measure imposes a bigger hazard than the current hazard? For example, a fence on a shared path to save cyclists falling into a steep batter.
Yeah, so as road safety auditors, we make recommendations, and sometimes our recommendations will come with other risks, okay? What good practice is in road safety auditing is to just flag those. We're not there to redesign the project completely. We're just flagging risks and coming up with ideas. They have to make those judgment calls. So in the end, road safety auditors are not the decision makers on projects. We're advisors. It is the designer, the project manager, the engineer who is making the decisions as to what or what does not happen. Okay, I think I better keep ticking on because we've got lots to cover. I will give people a break shortly. So slip-based poles, you saw that. You saw a slip-based pole in action. It was a bit of a weird one with that top bit falling down. I've never actually seen that happen. I wasn't too concerned with it. Some people get very concerned with that, but I didn't particularly have a major concern with it. But the slip-based pole, for those who don't know what they do, basically they have a shearing plane, and when struck, they will shear off at the base, and they've got some mechanisms to cater for wind load and torque through those bolts holding and a collar there. Wonderful, wonderful road safety device. Absolutely brilliant. You can see there, Max, one of our senior road safety auditors, just checking the height of the shear plane on a slip-based pole in a post-opening road safety audit. So roundabout's been built, and he's just going around in part of the many things he's having a look at and just saying, okay, did they make these the right height? Because if they are too high, vehicles will snag on them. They're not going to do their job. They're not going to slip. If they're too low, they're just less effective. They take more force to slip than they should. So that's one of the sort of things you would have a look at in a post-opening or an existing conditions road safety audit. And in design road safety audits, so you'll be given designs, and you'll be asked, you're essentially being asked, hey, what crashes could happen if we build this new stuff? And can you tell us how we can build it in a way that less crashes will happen or they're less severe? That's kind of what a road safety audit is. So in that, amongst that big set of designs you might be given a lighting plan, and it could look something like this. And you'd be looking at those new lights that they're putting in. You'd be looking at where they're being placed, and you'd be looking at, is that going to cause some sort of see-through effect? Or then you're thinking, what happens when somebody hits one? Is it going to be a slip-based pole? Is it going to be a rigid pole? And what are the implications of all of this? And let's jump in here to Victoria Gardens, and say you were given this at the design stage before they went out and built this big new intersection, and they had proposed this pole to be a slip-based pole. What comment might you think about as a road safety auditor? They're obviously trying to make it friendly for a driver that hits it, that it'll break away. What other things would you maybe factor in as a road safety auditor? Okay, Nikhil has done a pretty good one, which I think nicely covers off what we want there, which is the impact it might have on other road users. And so we want to think about, okay, if it gets struck, where's it going to fall? Is it going to fall onto pedestrian areas, onto power lines, onto tram lines? So again, that's sort of some of the thinking we probably do as road safety auditors. And a general rule of thumb is you would not want a slip-based pole in an area with pedestrian activity or reasonable amounts of pedestrian activity, just for the case that a vehicle might strike it, it will fall. There's big dangers there. Larger vehicles may sort of turn and they clip the back of their large vehicle on the pole, and if it's a slip base, that'd be enough force often to knock it over. And we have there a minor strike that could result in a more serious outcome. So in these lower speed environments, you're either going to go a rigid pole because you don't believe vehicle speeds are high enough to result in death or serious injury to the occupant of the vehicle when they strike the pole, or you go with something that's sort of fit for purpose for an in-between speed. And that's what we call an impact absorbing pole, which was mentioned earlier on. So impact absorbing, is a frangible pole, but it doesn't break away, and it has a general sort of enveloping of the vehicle and the pole, as you can see here. So friendlier for the driver, contains things a bit more in an area. So that's used in your in-between speed zones. Now, you as a road safety auditor at these sort of points can go and refer to your local jurisdiction's guidelines on where they recommend slip-based poles, where they recommend impact absorbing, where they recommend rigid poles, but you're still making that judgment as to the context that you're looking at. So some common audit findings: slip-based poles, where are they going to fall for design? And, are they the correct poles to be using in existing roads? Post-opening audits, are they the right height, are usually some of the things we look at. Now, the PDFs of all of the slides are available in the learning management system. Marissa will show you that later. In there, we sometimes put in these little buttons to say system snippets, which just takes you to some more information on the topic. So you'll be able to click those on your PDF, and it'll take you to a little video of car hitting slip-based pole and some more commentary around those and some information. So another common misunderstanding of road safety audits is to think it is that crash investigation where we're looking at a crash, or we're looking at an area with a number of crashes and analysing in detail the specifics of the crash and exactly what happened in that crash, and doing forensic crash investigation to understand that and then making recommendations. What you're doing there is a crash investigation or a black spot investigation is the terminology. If you are taking a pool of crashes and spending a big focus of your time analysing the crashes, looking for crash patterns or looking for details around a specific crash, you're not really doing a road safety audit. Yes, there's complementary and overlapping skill sets. However, the road safety audit is the proactive one. You can road safety audit areas with no crashes. You road safety audit a lot of the time a design. Well, there's no crashes in the design because it hasn't been built yet. It's changing the whole setup, right? The investigation of areas of crash history is a black spot investigation. Should you look at the crash history as part of a road safety audit? Well, Austroads has never answered that definitively, and it is always said it's a bit of your choice as an auditor. I've audited with people who refuse to look at crash history because they say it's irrelevant. This is for a design stage. It is irrelevant. This is currently an uncontrolled, like a give-way controlled intersection. They're building a roundabout. They're asking us when it's a roundabout, what are the crashes that could happen? It's irrelevant what the crashes are now. Right? I've also audited with people who really want that crash history. They say, well, okay, yes, it's going to be a roundabout in the future, but I'm interested in what's happened in the past and in whether there's different road users involved, what speeds people might be approaching, and things like that. That might play over into the new infrastructure, right? But if you are driving your road safety audit on crash history, it's not a road safety audit. My personal preference on use of crash history is I do the bulk of the audit with a team. We audit, we don't have the crash history yet. And then after we've done the bulk of our thinking, we have a look at the crash history. So we've been able to do the bulk of the work without being sort of fixated on crash history, but then it may alert us to something of interest. Now, road safety audits are highly beneficial. So there's been a lot of studies around the world done on the effectiveness of road safety audits. And if you use different benefit cost ratio techniques, and we won't debate, one of the best ways to work out whether road safety investments are good or not, but nonetheless, it showed here that for a design stage audit, that's where you're given a design and said, what improvements could we make to lessen risk to road users when we build this? It can give a 36-to-1 benefit cost ratio. Astronomical. That is just huge. Existing roads gives a 6-to-1. Okay. Every dollar invested gives $6 in return. That's huge. You'd invest in that every day of the week. Quick prize is if somebody can tell me why the difference here, why 36 versus 6. And we will take our break very shortly. Why 36 versus 6? Yes, I think I'll give this one to Nick. Easy to make big changes while it's planned. Absolutely. Like if they are lines on a bit of paper or lines in CAD, changes can be made easily. If it's physical infrastructure, if it's concrete, if it's barriers, if it's things like that, there's a lot of cost involved in changing things and a lot of reluctance to actually change anything as well. So you end up with lesser value treatments, often warning signs or these sort of things. So what is a road safety audit? Well, it's defined in the Australia's Guide to Road Safety Part 6 on page 4, and it's a big, big list here. And I'm not going to just read text to you. You can read it yourself if you want to go through all of those. Throughout the next few modules, I do take you through all of this with examples and the like, but it's in there. But I did grab this one paragraph, and I'm going to leave this paragraph on screen just while you go and have a, actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to, sorry, I've given you false hope there. I'm going to give it another couple of slides. It's a formal examination of a future road or traffic project or an existing road or road-related area in which an independent qualified team reports on the project's crash potential and actual safety performance, respectively. Important words, formal. Road safety audits are a formal process. We have 11 steps we have to follow. All right, I'll take you through those. Future project being a design or an existing road or road-related area, could be a shared path facility. Independent. Okay, you can't audit your own design. You can't audit a design if you're the project manager. And qualified teams, people who have done the audit course and are aware of the process of auditing. And we're thinking about what crashes could happen in the future. So the safe system, and I don't need to do this in much detail because we're getting such good publicity of the safe system. Most people have heard of it, and some of you have done safe system assessment training with me or others, and you've done safe system fundamentals, but human bodies are vulnerable. That's the center of our safe system. It's saying we need to understand the forces the human body can take before it is seriously injured or killed. We acknowledge people are going to make mistakes and we need to try to lessen those mistakes, but manage the mistakes when they happen. And we've got a shared responsibility, which is not intended to push responsibility to the individual road user, but it's actually intended to heighten us as system designers and our understanding that we have a responsibility to create road environments that people can read and understand, and then tolerate mistake making and manage the mistakes that happen. And of course, we can do this with all of these different elements of the system around the outside. Road safety audits focus on the roads, the roadsides, and the speeds predominantly. And then we think about the interaction with these others. The key principles of the SAFE system, we have an aspiration of zero death and serious injury, and decision-making should be on the premise that it's unacceptable for death or serious injury to happen. People make mistakes, shared responsibility, and people are vulnerable, which I've already covered. Okay, I wanted to get to this point to give you the break. So what's going to happen, a poll's going to pop up on your screen. It's got a number of questions. I think the first three we've covered the content on. The fourth one is for you to have a guess at. All right, you're not being marked on this. We're going to pop them up. We're going to give you time to do that and have a stretch, and we'll get back to it in 4 minutes time.
Hopefully that's popped up on your screen, Ken.
Yep. So if it doesn't pop up on your screen, don't get worried about that. Occasionally a firewall stops it, but don't get too worried about that. So poll should be there. You can move it around your screen if you want, but we're getting back into it in now 3 minutes 50 seconds.
Okay, time's ticking.
Hey, how'd we go there? If we can maybe end the poll, display the answers.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a hand up there. I wonder if that's a mistake or somebody actually wants to talk.
Alfred.
100% of people have correctly said that road safety audit is not another name for a check against standards. You can't audit your own design. Almost got everybody correct on that. No, that's not independent. We said you have to be independent. Safe attitudes, not considered one of the formal elements of the SAFE system. It is something we'd love, but it's not a formal element of the SAFE system. And the idea to eliminate mistakes on the road is not something that the SAFE system saying. We're more realistic to understand that people are going to make mistakes as humans involved in this road network. What we want to do is minimize and manage mistakes. So that is correct. And then the Usain Bolt one, and I do ask this a lot, so a lot of people seem to have got it, which is 44 kilometers per hour. Now, yeah, I hadn't covered that yet. And why on earth am I asking that as part of a road safety audit course? Well, as some of you will probably remember it or not, is I like to give this analogy of Usain Bolt running along at 44 kilometers per hour as he crosses the finish line, and that we've parked a car at the end of his lane, and he slams into the car at 44 kilometers an hour. And the question is, will he survive? And in theory, yes, he's likely to survive because he's very strong. He's a hulk of a human, and he's well built for some of that force. And there's a very sort of general correlation between running speed, maximum running speed, and physical force tolerance if running into solid objects. And this curve here sort of presents generally what sort of speeds we expect people to survive. And this is the speed of impact, not speed limit or anything like that. And this is fatality probability. And we see there around that sort of 30 kilometer per hour mark, we see that things start to go really bad really quickly. If vehicles strike pedestrians at above about that 30 kilometer per hour mark, we know things are not going to be good. So Usain Bolt's a little bit higher up the curve. The curve is for sort of all of the population. We see low speed crashes kill people. We see high speed crashes, people survive occasionally, right? The bulk of it is, as you can see there in the middle. Now we have this information for other road users, but first of all, I'll just show you what we are designed to withstand. So that's generally about the threshold of that human. He survives, breaks a few ribs, comes back the next year, wins the gold medal. That's survivability. Okay. We have this information for right angle crashes. So bullet vehicle speed, that's the bullet vehicle, target vehicle. It's the one that's going to have the injury. We see sort of 40, 50 kilometers per hour is where it starts to go really bad, really quickly with bullet vehicle speed. And then we have that for head-on crashes as well. So we're around 70 kilometers per hour. Things go really bad really quickly after that. So when speeds are above that. Now, there's lots of people doing lots of research around this and coming out with altered curves and the like. And it's always good to keep aware of that. These are fairly good to still keep in mind of some general speeds to think about. And if you sort of draw that line there, that's where it goes sort of exponentially bad after these points. So 30 kilometers per hour where pedestrians are around, 50 kilometers per hour, side impact crashes, 70 kilometers per hour for head-on crashes. And these are some good sort of points to think about when crashes happen, how bad they're going to be. Are they going to be worse than that to the right of the line, or are they going to be better than that to the left of the line? We factor some of this into our thinking. When we imagine a crash that's going to happen in the future, we ask ourselves, how fast are they going to be going? What angles are they going to hit at? And what do we think the outcome might be? There's some more information here for some other crash types. Cars into trees, on poles, for example. Fairly low speeds can cause some pretty bad outcomes for these types of crashes. If they're slip-based poles, we're in a far better situation. So the old model of road safety auditing was a simple 3-step: identify issue, make a risk assessment on that, and recommend changes. The new model, still the same general concept, but a few little additions. Identify risk or identify issue, assess the risk of it, but then think about where it sits within that safe system sort of tolerance. And I just showed you those graphs. Are we to the right of those lines or the left of those lines? Are we expecting this to be the source of death and serious injury? Or are we expecting this to be a lot more minor property damage and minor injury stuff? And then we make some recommendations, but we try to recommend the best safety outcomes. All right. So back here, and this is a problem with old road safety auditing process and practices, we did see sometimes a lot of very, very minor recommendations. Put up a warning sign. Change that one signed to a newer sign to make it more bright. These are not substantial things that are going to get us real step change in road safety outcomes. They're not things that we should ignore, but this new requirement gives us a lot more ability to understand what are actually going to have significant road safety benefits and what are just tweaking around the edges. So I think the best way to sort of show you further what is a road safety audit and what are the findings is to just walk you through an example of one finding. So we've been given this design. They're building a new intersection on a high-speed road, an 80 kilometer per hour road. It doesn't exist at the moment. It's new. They've come up with a design of it. And we're looking at this and we say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Splitter island, left turn lane, right turn lane. Okay, let's have a look at this. Let's delve into it. Now, the one particular issue, there's a number of things you might point out in this, looking at it, but one of the issues you might want to point out is associated with this scenario where you can see a vehicle's coming up to the hold line. They're looking up there to see if they can do their right turn. They want to get out of there. And then you can see there that they pulled up to the hold line. The truck's coming in doing a left turn. The truck's doing a left turn. We've got that white Holden going through. All right. And they'll say, great, when that white Holden has passed, I can go and do my right turn because the truck's turning left. in. Well, all that time just being masked by that vehicle, by the truck, was this other silver vehicle. And what we call that is dynamic visual obstruction. Dynamic visual obstruction, a moving vehicle or a vehicle that can move or an object that can move, obstructs sightlines. We know that if left turn facilities are built in that standard configuration, that there is this chance for dynamic visual obstruction. So what we want to do is articulate that in our audit report. And so you can see here, we've written that up. But one piece of advice I give you as a road safety auditor is if you can draw a diagram of it, or if you can put a photo of it, please put it in there, right? I don't need to read all these words to know exactly what is being talked about here, all right? So a diagram is just wonderful, as a photo is in a road safety audit finding. But the finding itself, we've developed a recipe or a formula for writing an audit finding, and I'm going to take you through that. It took me quite a number of years to finally unpack this and go, okay, this is actually the structure of what a good audit finding is. And then I'd been teaching this for a while, and now it's filtered its way into the Australis report or guidelines. So the red part there is the issue. For the intersection that we're talking about here, vehicles using the left turn lanes may create a dynamic visual obstruction for motorists at the hold line looking for through vehicles. Okay, that's the issue. The yellow actually articulates and says the specific crash that can result from this issue. This increases the likelihood of right through side impact crashes involving vehicles turning out of the side road. Spell out the crash. The blue is then any factors that may increase the risk, decrease the risk. Okay, the volume of vehicles on both roads is low, so the likelihood of this happening is low. However, the proportion of larger vehicles turning left into Epsom Butterworth Road is high, increasing the chance of dynamic visual obstruction. Then, if you know of standards or guidelines that are applicable in this situation, you can put them in there. In this case, says, the design is consistent with Austroads and VicRoads design guidance. The auditors believe it still presents a safety issue. So there you go. That is meeting the standards, right? But it's still believed to be a safety issue. Sometimes you might, in this spot, say that doesn't meet standards, and here's the standard that should be met because you believe it's unsafe by not meeting that standard. But sometimes you might just leave that out altogether, that purple bit. So that structure is really important for you to follow as a road safety auditor, because it really helps you, structure out what should be in your finding. If you can't articulate what the crash is that you're concerned with, it's not a road safety audit issue. Okay, and that does pop up. It might sound ridiculous to you at the moment. Why would somebody report on that? But it does. It can be people talking about, drainage into properties. Oh, this will drain, this will flood into this adjoining property. Okay, well, that's not our issue. Okay, you might write a little separate email to the designer and say, hey, well, I was auditing, I just picked up that you're going to flood that property, right? And that's probably a good thing to do, but it's not part of the road safety audit. So then we've found this issue. We need to risk rate it. Okay, so somebody got a formula for risk for me? Pop that into the chat. Likelihood times severity, thank you. We'll take that. Whoever was in first, Marissa, let you work that out. Likelihood times severity, chance of crash happening. How bad is it going to be? International definition risk, sometimes talked about as frequency times consequence. Okay, so what we're saying is what is the chance this crash is going to happen that we are worried about? And when it does happen, how bad is it going to be? And what we do is using a very sort of common looking risk matrix, we go and find how often we think this might happen. Okay, is it going to happen? This crash is going to happen, once every 1 to 3 years, or is it going to be past every, 7 years or 10 years or 20 years? Is the outcome going to be minor? Is it just going to need first aid? Or is it going to be fatal? Are they going to die within 30 days of the crash? And then you find your resultant risk, high risk there, or could be extreme risk. Now you notice this line here, this dotted line, and that's basically saying, hey, any crash, any risk to the right of this is really unaligned with our safe system principles. Anything to the left of this, we don't particularly want, but it's better aligned with our safe system principles. The reason for that is, like for like, we would rather that high than that high. Okay, we would rather more moderate crashes happening than some ones that are lifelong debilitating injuries or death to road users. So that's really the reason for that line. And there you go, I've got a bigger version of it. So you use this to find your risk. So there you can see the risk has been put in on this one. And it's saying the likelihood is expected to be rare. The outcome is expected to be serious. The risk is medium, but, we're thinking about it will result in fatalities or serious injuries. So once you've got a risk rating in there, you need to make a recommendation. And what we're saying is, okay, there are just a huge number of things that you could do to lessen risk here, right? We could be changing the design. We could change the intersection control. We could change the lane configuration. We could put up warning signs. We could do all sorts of different things, right? Which ones are we going to recommend? That takes some judgment. But we also want to say, well, which are going to be really effective, which are going to actually reduce death and serious injury in a substantial way, and which are good, but not really going to get us there. They're going to help out a bit, but they're not really taking care of that risk. And we categorize these into either the primary treatments or supporting treatments. And I want you to think of these as buckets of treatments, okay? So there's lots of primary things that we could do. We could build a roundabout there. We could do a grade separation. These are sort of primary things. Supporting, again, there's a huge bucket of things we could do. Line marking, signs, lane configuration, setups. So what these are, if we believe it's going to virtually eliminate death and serious injury from that crash type, it's a primary treatment, virtually eliminate. If we believe it's going to improve road safety, but it's not going to virtually eliminate the crash type, it's going to lessen the chance this crash happens, that's a supporting treatment. Now, there are a whole lot of lists of primary and supporting treatments in a different document, the Safe System Assessment Framework, which is a different methodology, but it's good for that list. And you will put a copy of that into the learning management system that you can look at. But at this location, what we're saying is that, okay, implement measures to reduce the speed and or angle of impact of this location. This could be achieved with a roundabout, which is a primary treatment. If a roundabout was put in this location, it would virtually eliminate intersection-related crashes vehicle to vehicle, which is what we're talking about in this finding. If this cannot be achieved, implement measures to improve sight lines at this location, such as increasing the offset of the left turn lane. That's a supporting treatment. Even though if we offset the turn lane down here, we've opened up these sight lines. There's still the ability for a car to make a bad call, to drive out here, to overshoot, to be struck by a vehicle coming through here. It's just less likely to happen. So that's a supporting treatment. or we could reallocate the hold line forward, play around with the hold line to open up those sight lines. These are going to be less effective. But we are somewhat realistic that this project may be stuck with a budget or land constraints or these sort of things, and they may not be able to get that roundabout in. We love them to, and we put it out there as our first, recommendation, but they may not be able to do that. Here's an example of one similar, came up. The audit team actually suggested using a bike lane to open up those sight lines, also catered for some bike challenges that were happening in the area as well. Interesting approach. That was actually what was built, and it worked out quite well. Little tip, and Marissa, I'll check in for questions after this. To be categorized as a primary treatment, it's really going to have to address the consequence of crash. Or it would have to somehow virtually eliminate crashes, which, as per the little footnote there, it's very hard because we're accounting for humans making mistakes, falling asleep, dropping their coffee in their lap, running red lights, these sorts of things. You'll get some good practice in that categorization of primary and supporting. I'm going to repeat it a few times. You're going to have a little quiz on it that you'll have 3 attempts at, that it's going to help you. But the last thing in an audit finding table is that you leave that column blank at the on the right-hand side there. You leave that blank because it is a very clear reminder to whoever receives the audit report, you've got to do something with this. We've identified a risk. You've got to do something. You don't necessarily need to build something or change something, but you've got to acknowledge that either you agree with that and you're going to do it, you agree with it, you're going to do something else to lessen that risk, or you disagree with it. And that's all fine. Like if you receive an audit report and you disagree that that's an issue, that's your prerogative, right? It's your project. You make that call, right? Justify it though. Justify and explain why you don't believe it's an issue. So I want to leave us plenty of time to go through the learning management system. So I won't go through this in detail. It's in your notes and you can look at it in more detail. But immediately you can see, here's another example, right? We've got a design. It's for new signalization of an intersection, right? I don't even need to read these words to know that that's referring to a 2.9 meter wide right turn lane. That is too narrow, right? That's going to cause issues, right? And so the diagram has just been immeasurably helpful there. Okay, but the words here will conform with our usual setup there of identifying the issue, talking about the crash that will happen, then talking about any risk factors. And this one actually talks directly about the Austroads requirements around lanes in these configurations, saying 3.3 meter would be an absolute minimum in this circumstance. So that one doesn't meet standards, right? And it's being reported. And you can see there risk rating. This column is now being put in there, and the recommendation is simple in this one, which just says make it 3.3. That's going to be trouble for the designer, right? But that's kind of their issue to deal with. I like to be a little more helpful than this in an audit report, but that's perfectly adequate to do. So, yeah, lots of challenges there, but it could involve widening a bit. It could involve reallocation of lane space. It could involve dropping off a lane. It's going to be very hard without actually going a little bit wider with this cross-section if they want to keep what they're planning here. So some examples of sort of poor audit finding wording. Right turn bay is too narrow. Which right turn bay? Why is it too narrow? What's the problem with that? Like, it just doesn't help us. So better would be, from main road to side roads too narrow, in talking about some crashes that could happen and talking about some guidance. But what we're aspiring to is really laying that out nicely here with the formula, telling us the issue nice and clearly, telling us the crash that can happen, talking about factors that increase risk or decrease risk in this context, and then talking about standards and guidelines as applicable. Marissa, any questions I need to deal with at this stage?
No questions at the moment, Ken. We just have a few comments. Also considerations of impacts from the vehicles travelling in the opposite direction from the other side of the road.
Okay, I'm not sure what that one's referring to, but that's okay.
And no questions. We do have a few jokers though in the group though, Ken.
We'll give them some prizes, please.
And I've told them, I said, I haven't given any prizes during my time when I've been moderating, but I think I just gave out my first few. So
I get to download a whole copy of all of the transcript of this after the session. So I look forward to reading those.
Yes, few jokers there. But no.
I'll keep going then because I got lots to cover. Okay, here's a list of things that a road safety audit is not. And I put these in, again, this is repeated in the Austroads guide, but a few that I really want to point out here is that we haven't really talked about in detail. It's not, auditors are not really talking about the overall merits of a project. And you may think a project is just a waste of money. That's not your thing to do as a road safety auditor, is to point that out. And gee, I've audited some things I think is a waste of money. But anyway, that's not my thing. It's just to identify the death or serious injury potential to the community when they build it. You don't rate or rank project options as an auditor. That would be another exercise altogether. Okay, you're just simply listing all of the things you think are risks that could result in death or serious injury. Not sort of cyclic asset management inspections, not workplace health and safety style checking either. So have a read of those. I think there's some of the good ones for you to have a look at. Now, one thing I often find as a challenge for auditors is that we often get these technical people, often engineers or tech officers or the like, and they are like society's problem solvers, right? That is just what they love to do. And I'm sure a lot of you are one of those. You just relish solving problems, right? The challenge we have is a road safety auditor is predominantly a problem finder, right? Solving the problem is this like added benefit, like that we provide some ideas for the engineers and designers and tech officers. We need to identify those problems. But what I see often is a road safety auditor will write the solution into the problem or their ideal solution, because in their mind, they identify problem and solve it all in one, it's one thing. And I see finders say the intersection should be a roundabout, not a set of traffic signals. Like, whoa, how did we get to that? What problem? What are the actual? So, they've obviously identified problems and solved them all in one fell swoop. We separate it out and we clearly articulate the issue, the problem. Then we'll get to some ideas on how that could be resolved. Now, in this day and age, as I mentioned, lots and lots of techniques emerging on road safety. Road safety audit's been around for about 30 plus years, so it's a pretty well established one. Design reviews and somebody independent checking your design for, did you do the right calculations? Have you made the right assumptions and these sort of things? That's a good process. Safe system assessments are now becoming very mainstream and something that are done. That they overlap with road safety audits. They've got distinct elements themselves. Safety and design is more occupational health and safety focused around, will workers be safe building this, maintaining it, decommissioning it. There are elements that overlap in terms of the operation. And like DDA compliance, the Disability Discrimination Act, and some auditing to check that every road user with their different abilities can use this facility is again, a different thing altogether. Now, it'd be nice if we did sort of one that covered off a lot of these. It's where we are at the moment. I'm just trying to give you an indication there is overlapping elements, but I do often, see people mistaking which methodology should be used at what point in time. So there's a bit of thinking to be done there. But we can audit like anything that interacts with the road environment, big projects, small projects, rural, urban construction sites, ped and cyclist facilities, off-road shared paths, cycleways. It's very versatile because it's a process. It is essentially a risk assessment process with some key steps and some ways to look at things. So we're quite versatile in that perspective. But it's a really important process. And I want to give this example where a road safety audit wasn't done. And this is an intersection, and you can see it's unsealed road there. And the local government was sealing this road. They were getting a new bit of a development happening, and they were doing a formalising of the road, so seal the road, and they were doing, it's a bit of formalisation of this intersection. Here it is built. You can see from the aerial image, it's a bit grainy, but you can see it built, right? So that's what it was. And that was the project that they were doing. Now, the project was meeting all of the design standards and guidelines. The infrastructure design manual that they use, they were meeting all of that. It'd been designed very well. And they elected no road safety audits to be undertaken because they were meeting all of the standards and guidelines, and they were improving the road. They were making the road sealed and improving this intersection, curve and channel around it. Well, good. But can somebody maybe have a guess at why there was a significant spike in the number of our community killed and seriously injured after this was built? Anybody have a guess on why that might be the case? So again, I'm seeing lots of ideas coming in here, and each of them are really, I suppose, beneficial. And again, like to do this from some aerial image at a desktop is extremely hard. It'd be much more obvious. I do have a couple of photos from on site, but I'm going to give a prize there. Yeah, I could give out a few prizes here. But one, I think Andrew in there took away the sort of delineation of the intersection. So that was a problem. And again, without going to the site, you can't. So before a driver approaching from here, a very clear view of a changed environment there. Okay, when it was like this, that changed environment didn't appear as much, and that see-through effect. There's the new built one. Don't worry about the burnout marks. So, but that see-through effect really accentuated with the sealing of that road. Of course, very hard to do for those aerial images. And I was, not expecting people to really get that one. But the comments in there around this, new vehicles on this road, increased volume, increased speed, they're all very relevant. Width again of the intersection and sweeping turns and things, that's very relevant. The see-through effect, though, in this case was very, very relevant. And it saw a big spike in the number of people overshooting this intersection and also those that were, overshooting and then being struck by vehicles coming through and killed and seriously injured. So this is where no audit was done. Now, if an audit was done, it could have recommended things to lessen this risk. It could have ideally said a roundabout, but maybe they couldn't have afforded that in what they were doing, but at least they would have really considered it. It could have put in there many, many different options on how we could have lessened this risk and prevented some of the death and serious injury. I mean, I just run a few off the top of my head. I mean, very much a roundabout, or something to address speeds of vehicles coming through here would have been good. You could have offset this road so it was a staggered T, which would certainly have stopped overshoot crashes. And if you're going to do a staggered T, always do it that direction. Don't stagger down this way. That's no good for a number of reasons, but I won't go into that because that'll take the rest of the session. Staggered T, we could have done things like splitter islands. Splitter islands are highly effective in reducing see-through visual deceit type crashes. Splitter islands, 45% reduction in the number of crashes at an intersection with additions of splitter islands. It's phenomenal for what they are. You could have done some approach rumble strips, activated warning signs. There's just a few immediate ones that could have been done to lessen this risk. Now, Marissa, I'm starting to, some people are putting in their ideas around perceptual countermeasures. So they're things like dragon's teeth on the approach, and raised platforms, a good idea. This group's obviously got a lot of this thinking in mind. It's about the importance of doing those, even though they thought they were improving the road environment, it's always worth having that safety lens, that safety consideration done. We often see projects like public transport projects, congestion easing projects. All right, they've got other objectives, and they think following a standard will guarantee them safety. It's really important that we're injecting that specific safety lens through an audit or a safe system assessment in those projects. Now, I am going to just jump through a couple more slides, Marissa, and then hand back to you in about 5 minutes, if that's all right, which will then give us opportunity to introduce people to the learning management system and give them a little assignment to do.
Yes, which I'm sure they're all looking forward to.
It's fun. It's a fun assignment. Don't worry. So road safety audit is this process, and I'm going to take you through at the start of next module, or I think actually Max is going to, the process of auditing, the steps we do. But this can be done at all these different stages within a project. So it can be done at the design stage before any building happens. So, either give you a feasibility design or a preliminary design or a detailed design, and you as a team look at it and you identify issues and you try and get them to rectify things before it's built. When they're building, you can do an audit, the construction site. That's interacting with the road environment. Do pre-opening, if it's a road that is not open to traffic, you can have a look at it before it opens. And then, just as it's open, or the existing road environment. And so feasibility stage audits, well, they're really what we call the sort of planning stage audit. They're usually big picture. There's, you've got big alignments that you're looking at, or, ideas on intersection form. You don't have much detail whatsoever, but you're thinking about, big issues like how are these people going to now get down here, and what's the tie-in going to look like here? Is that going to increase speed into this curve? Are these the right interchange forms? All of that sort of stuff. You might get a little bit more detail. You'll be thinking about where this is going to change travel patterns, how are pedestrians going to navigate these new areas. Then you get into some more details around the design. Now, it might be a preliminary or concept, could be on an aerial image, it could be on a survey base like this one, and you're starting to get some detail and you're honing in on the details of how it might all work. Then you get the detailed design, and this is the full design set. You get the long sections, the cross sections, you get the signage plans, the drainage, the line marking, the signal phasing, yeah, you get the works, and it can be, yeah, it can be hundreds and hundreds of A3 pages of this sort of stuff that you as an audit team need to wade through and try to understand, what are they building? What's it going to look like? And then how are road users going to be using it, and what are the risks and that could happen? So yeah, my immediate tip on detailed design is that ensure there's people in the audit team that look at these and know what is actually going to happen and be actually built, and what that's going to look like when it's built, because that's part of the audit team's job. Now, if you're not somebody who deals with this sort of these sort of designs day in, day out, it doesn't mean you can't contribute to the audit team, right? You will likely be the person asking very logical, common sense questions. Well, how's a pedestrian going to now get from there to there? Or, if you considered cyclists in this at all, how are they going to get through here? Right? You'll be asking logical questions like that, but you really do need people who can look at that and say, oh, there's actually going to be a sight distance issue on the approach to this intersection because of the crest that's created there, right? And so that combined team will produce a really good outcome. And you get into some really nitty-gritty detail and technical details often. I've got one example here of the difference between, well, we know a non-drivable culvert end wall is going to be a bad thing. A vehicle leaves the road, hits that, abrupt stop. We want to see drivable culvert end walls, right? Much better. But there's two types of drivable culvert end walls. And if you get the wrong one, in the wrong configuration, one's for going across the road and one's for going parallel with the road. You get the wrong one, it doesn't particularly work as well as it should. So you've got to get a type 1 in the type 1 spot, and you've got to get the type 2 in the type 2 spot. So those are very sort of technical level detail things that we as auditors are trying to look for and pick up. Construction stage, this is where there's big changes during traffic management, and usually for longer term works or big complex works. And you're trying to think more holistically than have we met the code of conduct, and the code, is the right bollard taper, have we got the right sign in the right spot? But you want to think holistically about safety, just like any road safety audit. If there's a McDonald's on this corner, how are people going to go and get their Big Mac? They are going to walk across there, right? They will make their way. They want their Big Mac and they're going to get it, right? How are they going to do that? How are we safely catering for that, right? That's got nothing really to do with the particular traffic guidance scheme layout. There's a bit of interaction, but you're holistically thinking about that. Are we diverting cars down roads past schools? Are we causing other safety issues as a result of this? Pre-opening audit is just before the ribbon's cut. You go in and do a final check. And post-opening is where it's kind of live to traffic. A lot of brownfield sites are built live to traffic, so you don't really get to do a pre-opening because the road's not closed. So you're in this post-opening. Anybody pick an issue with that? Or post-opening audit test for you? These are the kind of things you sometimes pick up in a post-opening audit. Yep, right turn from the left, Lachlan on that first, I think. So looks like our line mic got their stencil upside down, and we've got a forced conflict. So telling somebody they can turn right from there and somebody going straight through there. So existing conditions audits, don't just do them on your whole network. That's a waste of money. Refine them down, use them targeted where some areas of concern have been identified. And there's a last one called thematic audits, and they're where you do a special, you follow the audit process, but you will actually have a motorbike rider with you in the team, or you'll have a cyclist, or you cycle the route, or you go out, you walk the route, maybe you take somebody in a wheelchair along to go through the route with you. It's a bit more focused on a particular theme. Okay, Marissa is about to give you an assignment. I'll talk you through it. She'll take you through it, but it's fun. Don't get too overstressed about it. We're going to give you a topic at random, and it's a road safety related topic. And you're going to do a little bit of research. And I say a little bit of research, hit up ChatGPT, Google, your usual desktop things. And then you can do whatever you want. You can do a little video, you can do a fact sheet, you can do a cartoon, you can just write a little bit of text if you want. We want you to relate it back to road safety, and particularly road safety audit, road safety infrastructure. And sort of thinking, what advice could I give to road safety auditors based on the information that I've uncovered in my research? The reason for this is we've got this big list of topics, and they're all interesting road safety topics, and we would love to cover all these. And I asked Marissa if we could do a 10-week course, and she said people probably not going to come to that. So as a result, we're giving you one little topic. We're going to share all of the assignments with everybody, so you can have a look at other people's little cartoon on super elevation or their little video on Danish offset crossings, and you'll gather a little bit of knowledge around some road safety specifics. And of course, we're going to give prizes. We will judge the most creative way of presenting the information. We've seen TikToks come through. We've seen, nobody's done an interpretive dance yet, but
no, I'm looking forward to our first flash mob.
Flash mob would be amazing. Yeah. We're going to give the most technically sound information an award, and we're going to give the most engaging an award. So over to you, Marissa. You've got all of these. There's all of our different topics, but Marissa will use a random generator to assign you a topic, and we will send you that. We'll send you the topic, so but you'll be able to see it on the screen, and we'll also show you in the learning management system just how to upload that. Marissa, you've got 4 minutes.
All right. Can you see my screen, Ken?
Yep, we've got it.
Okay, great. So let's go. Let's see. If you don't see your name on the screen, not to worry. It's just not showing all of them. All right.
A little bit further down, is it? Yeah, some great ones there.
Some great ones. And we'll stop it there.
Yep, that's good.
All right.
Make sure
so
take a copy of that.
Don't stress if you can't see your name. I will send these out to you. We will email out your topic to you, so you can have a look at what you've been allocated. And we will also post this on the LMS. So speaking of the LMS, I'll take you through. If you haven't already been able to log on to the LMS, this is our LMS. A fair few of you already popped in your introduction, so thank you. That's been great to read. We have a few folders for pre-course content. So reference documents and resources that Ken has already referred to. The Off-Roads Guide to Road Safety Part 6 is in there, and a few other documents that you can have a look at. Some course information, the agenda, and so on that you've already received. Scrolling down to module 1, there will be a quiz for each of the modules for this course. This is the link to the module 1 quiz. So won't take you long to complete, 5-10 minutes at the most, but you will need to complete each quiz after each module to successfully pass the course. So please have a look at the module 1 quiz there. We do have module 1 slides, Ken's presentation from today. We've popped the slides in there for you to refer back to at any time. We will pop in here the recording from today's session. So we'll upload that shortly, or probably this afternoon once that's available for us to upload. Some module 1 videos that we've already seen in today's session here for you to have a look at. And there's also an example research assignment that's here, which is based on the research assignment that you're going to be doing. So you can have a look at someone else's example there. Okay, so the research topic. So if we just have a look here, research topic. You have been assigned a topic at random, which we will send out to you. I will attach the list here, so you can access it at any time. As Ken has mentioned, develop anything you like, a fact sheet, a cartoon, a short video, whatever's convenient for you. and we will ask you. So once you've completed it, you can just upload your submission here, just add submission, and that will take you to just a screen where you can just drop your file into there and save, and that will upload that, and we'll get notification, and we'll get that marked and so on. The due date for the topic, Monday the 7th. So we've got a week, just under a week. So it is due next Monday. And yeah, so hopefully that gives you enough time there. Ken?
Thanks, Marissa. And
That's
well
all right.
timed, because we're just about
I
to
know.
end. But if you
just
do have any
about.
questions or have any trouble logging into the learning management system, email training@safesystemsolutions.com.au. You will shortly be sent a copy of those assignment lists. Make sure you get that before you close it or anything, Marissa, because that'll
Will do.
you.
Will do.
And thank you for the wonderful input today, everybody. Well done. Log in a little bit early before next session, chance to win a prize with some trivia. I think you'll see Max next session, but I look forward to catching you a session after that. Thanks, everybody. You're a good group.
See ya. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.